Learning English through real stories is one of the best ways to improve. Instead of repeating dry grammar rules, your brain learns through feeling, context, and fun. That's how children learn their first language, and you can do the same. If you enjoy this kind of learning, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. New stories arrive every single day. Venice had always been a place that lived in paintings and dreams. Narrow canals, quiet boats, bridges that curved like ribbons, and music that floated in the air like the smell of fresh bread. That was what people imagined, and for Sophie that dream had finally become real. She arrived in the city just before evening. The sun had already begun to lower itself behind the rooftops, and the water reflected the colors of the sky. She stepped off the train and followed the flow of people toward the heart of Venice. She had no suitcase, only a small backpack, and she walked slowly, wanting to absorb every little detail. There were no cars here. Only the sound of footsteps, laughter, and boats gliding through the canals. Every few minutes she would stop just to stare at the buildings leaning slightly from age, the flower pots on window ledges, the lights beginning to glow from behind curtains. Sophie didn't have a fixed plan. That was the whole point of this trip: to wander, to experience, to discover things by accident. She had read that the best way to find food in Venice was to get lost. So that's exactly what she did. She turned left when the streets looked empty and right when a breeze carried the smell of something delicious. Soon she found herself walking through a narrow alleyway. The stones under her feet were smooth from centuries of walking. At the end of the path, a small restaurant appeared, almost hidden between two tall buildings. The door was open. Inside it looked warm and welcoming. She was hungry. Her feet were tired, and the light coming from that door felt like an invitation. So she walked in. The room was quiet at first. The sound of forks on plates, glasses being gently placed on tables, and soft conversation filled the space. The air smelled of roasted vegetables and fresh herbs. She didn't see a host or waiter, but there were many tables, and one near the back looked empty. So she made her way there and sat down. She noticed that the table had already been set. A basket of bread, a small carafe of water, and folded napkins sat neatly in the middle. It seemed perfect. She reached for a piece of bread and took a sip of water. Then she looked around. The room was full, but not with tourists. Everyone else looked like they belonged. There were children, grandparents, cousins. It seemed like every table was part of one big group. People were hugging, clinking glasses, passing dishes around. Some spoke quickly with their hands. Others leaned in close to whisper something funny. It took Sophie a few minutes to realize the truth. This wasn't just a regular restaurant night. She had walked into a private family dinner. Suddenly she felt very warm. She glanced down at her hands, then at her backpack. The bread in her hand seemed heavier now. She looked around, hoping maybe someone would come and ask her to order. But no one did. The people nearby didn't even seem surprised by her presence. They simply continued their conversations, smiling and laughing, as if she were just another cousin joining late. For a brief moment she considered getting up and walking out. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the smell of the food. Maybe it was the way everyone looked so genuinely happy. Or maybe it was the quiet voice inside her that said, "You're already here. Enjoy it." So she stayed. A few minutes later, a man passed by and gave her a friendly nod. He didn't look confused or annoyed. He even pushed the bread basket a little closer to her before walking away. It felt unreal. She sat there quietly, listening to the sounds of togetherness. A child laughed behind her. Two older women shared a memory and wiped away tears. Plates moved around like little boats on a busy sea. She didn't speak. She didn't eat more bread. He just watched. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. Back home, meals were fast. People ate alone, eyes on phones, rushing to the next task. But here in this small room in Venice, dinner was sacred. It was a celebration of connection. Even though she didn't know anyone, she felt included. She watched the way one woman served soup to an older man with so much care. She noticed how a teenager offered his last piece of dessert to his younger sister without being asked. These were simple moments, but they carried deep meaning. Sophie didn't need perfect vision to see that. Eventually, a woman approached her table with a warm smile and placed a plate in front of her. It was full of colorful vegetables, pasta, and something that smelled like garlic and tomatoes. The woman didn't say anything. She simply smiled again and walked away. Sophie looked down at the food. He took a bite. And it was perfect. The flavors were gentle, homemade, and comforting. It tasted like it had been cooked slowly with patience and love. She ate slowly, trying to make the moment last. By the time she finished, the room was quieter. Some guests had started to leave. Others stood by the door, hugging goodbye and saying things that sounded like promises to meet again soon. Sophie stood up, adjusted her bag, and made her way to the door. No one stopped her. A few even nodded politely as she passed. Outside, the night air felt cooler. The canals reflected the lights like dancing stars. She stood there for a moment, thinking about what had just happened. She had walked into the wrong place. Or maybe it was the right place all along. Back at her small hotel room, she sat on the edge of the bed and took out her journal. She wrote down everything, not just the food but the feeling. The feeling of being surrounded by love, even by strangers. The warmth of inclusion. The surprise of kindness. The next day she continued exploring Venice. But every time she passed a restaurant or smelled something familiar, her mind returned to that evening. The city was beautiful, yes. The water, the bridges, the music. But what she would remember most was the dinner she was never invited to, and yet never turned away from. Without even realizing it, you just absorbed natural, practical English. You read a full story in the past tense, picked up ways to describe events and feelings, and saw how people react in unfamiliar situations, all without memorizing boring rules or doing drills. That's the power of story-based learning. If you liked this one, go ahead and give the video a like, subscribe to our channel, and tap the bell for more. We post a new story every day to help you grow your English naturally. Now it's your turn. Have you ever walked into the wrong place by accident? Tell us what happened in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. See you in the next one.